Bosun, pipe him aboard.
Aye, aye, sir.
Fire, dress ship. Very good, sir. Dress ship!
A Brief History of Man's Maritime Mastery. Chapter 12. Pirates Plunder in a Power Vacuum. Queen Elizabeth I, the woman that King Philip derisively calls that woman, is a master of ambiguity, temporizing, vacillating, and always keeping her cards close to her chest. She has inherited a navy that Parliament has warned must be kept ever ready against the evils that may come. Under the untiring efforts of John Hawkins, cousin to the legendary Sir Francis Drake, the navy has been strengthened, yet Elizabeth never fully unleashes it against the growing Spanish threat. Even after Francis Drake and the Golden Hind's provocative voyage, she still hopes for peace. But peace, as always, is a fragile thing. When King Philip seizes all English ships in Spanish ports, Elizabeth responds by ordering Drake to make reprisals, a perfectly legal means of redress in those days. And if Drake exceeds his orders, well, the gentleman careth not if I disown him, she says with a sly smile. Drake, emboldened by his queen's tacit support, sails to the Caribbean, pillaging Santo Domingo, Cartagena, and the Florida settlement of St. Augustine. Though he finds little treasure, he carries away 240 guns that may one day turn against their former masters. Word soon reaches Drake that Philip is quietly assembling an armada, a great fleet to invade England. Drake wastes no time. He leads 26 ships into the very throat of Cadiz, the heart of Spain's naval might. The port is a fortress, rimmed by batteries and crammed with vessels. Cannons roar, galleys charge, and the wind falls, trapping Drake's fleet in a deadly embrace. For 12 hours the battle rages, but with the dawn comes a fresh breeze, and Drake, ever the master sailor, clears sail, leaving behind a trail of destruction. 30 ships wrecked, vital stores shattered. The invasion fleet is delayed, giving England precious time to prepare. 15 months will pass before the Armada sails, but by then, the stage is already set for one of the most dramatic confrontations in naval history. Vice Admiral Sir Francis Drake, a man whose name now strikes fear into the hearts of his enemies, paces the quarterdeck of the Revenge, one of England's newer and more formidable 500-ton galleons. His mind races with the weight of the gamble they've taken. Alongside Lord Admiral Charles Howard, John Hawkins, Martin Frobisher, and other seasoned commanders, Drake has placed his faith in a strategy as audacious as it is perilous. When the Armada, this colossal, awe-inspiring Spanish fleet, the likes of which the world has never seen, entered the English Channel, the English commanders made their move. They swung around behind it, seizing the weather gauge, that vital advantage in naval warfare. Now they hang on its heels like relentless sheepdogs nipping at the edges of a titanic beast. But what if the Armada, with all its might, were to turn suddenly and seize an English port? Could they, with their lighter, faster ships, stop such a juggernaut? The Armada, a mile-wide phalanx of 130 ships, towering galleons, lumbering store ships, great galleasses, and lesser escorts, rolls steadily up the channel. A wall of wood and iron, moving with grim determination. The air is thick with the sounds of trumpets, drums, and chanted prayers, while the incongruous neighing of cavalry horses adds an eerie note to the scene. The Spanish formation is perfect, its discipline unbreakable. Drake observes with a mix of respect and resolve that these Spaniards are determined to sell their lives dearly. To close in with the Armada, Drake knows, would be folly. The Spanish ships, bristling with heavy cannon, could be devastating at short range. And each of these massive vessels is packed with Spanish infantry, reputed to be the best soldiers in the world. The English, with their swift, low-slung weatherly galleons, must play the role of the hound, hitting, running and trying to pick off stragglers where they can. But time is not on their side. Supplies are running low, and the English are desperate. Their supply ships are always late, always carrying too little to sustain a prolonged fight. The furious cannon volleys from both sides have little effect, for the range is still too great. Somehow they must get closer, break the Spanish formation, and strike at its heart. Then fortune shifts. The Armada swings away from the English coast and anchors in the open roadstead at Calais. The Spanish plan to link up with the army in Flanders has gone awry, and the Duke of Medina Sidonia, the Spanish admiral, must await further orders. The English, anchored scarcely a mile away, see their chance. On the second night they prepare 8 vessels, filling them with combustibles, an inferno in waiting. With the wind and current in their favor, they send these fiery ships drifting toward the Armada, their decks crackling with flames, their masts glowing like pyres in the darkness. What ensues is sheer pandemonium. The Spanish captains, realizing the danger, rush to get under way, desperate to escape the approaching hellfire. Great axes swing, hemp ropes snap under the blows, and irreplaceable anchors are left behind as the Spaniards cut their ships free. Aloft the sails swell as the ships stagger out of the roadstead, colliding in the chaos, all under the hideous glare of the burning fire ships. Morning breaks to reveal a scene of devastation. The Armada's once invulnerable formation lies shattered, its ships scattered and vulnerable. Wind and tide push the Spanish fleet slowly toward the treacherous Flemish coast, while the English, with Drake at the helm, close in from windward. The Spaniards, unable to work clear of the shoals and too fearful to turn about, find themselves cornered. Off Gravelines, the final showdown begins. Drake, ever the bold tactician, leads the English ships in at half-musket shot range. The Revenge exchanges broadsides with Medina Sidonia's flagship, the San Martin. The English gunners, swift and precise, aim for the exposed bilges as the Spanish ships heel to leeward under oppressive sail. 9-pound balls punch through the stout oak hulls, shattering the upper works and sending deadly splinters scything across the decks. Blood runs thick in the scuppers, while the Spanish, their own shot nearly spent, try in vain to grapple and board the English ships. It seems that the end is near for the Armada, when suddenly a violent squall blows in from the sea. Lashing rain and fierce winds force the fleets apart, a providential shift in the weather that saved the Spaniards from stranding on the shoals. They seize the chance and stand away to the north, seeking a way home by swinging around Scotland. The English, drained but resolute, pursue them as far as the Firth of Forth. Drake, ever the master of understatement, later reports, "There was never anything pleased me better than seeing the enemy flying with the southerly wind toward the northwards." The battle is over, and England has won her place in the seas. The Armada, now a shattered remnant of its former self, struggles up the North Sea and around the tip of Scotland. But the full fury of the North Atlantic gales lies in wait. The once proud fleet is torn apart. Some ships flounder at sea, others are flung against the outer islands of Scotland, dashed to pieces by the relentless surf. In desperation, some Spanish captains, their men racked by thirst, hunger, and sickness, turn to seek refuge on the coast of Ireland. But the treacherous tides, stiff winds, and their own ignorance of the coast conspire against them. Vessels are driven onto lee shores, where Irish looters and bands of English soldiers await. Survivors are mercilessly put to the sword. In the end, only half the once mighty Armada limps home to Spain, many of its ships never to set sail again. And so, with the wreckage of the Armada, the balance of power on the high seas shifts. England, once a fledgling naval power, now stands tall, ready to challenge any who would dare oppose her. The age of English dominance has begun. The defeat of the Armada did more than just secure England's place on the high seas. It ignited a spark of audacity in bold men who saw opportunity in Spain's weakened grip on her far-flung empire. By the early 1600s, these enterprising souls, French and English adventurers alike, began to carve out new lives on the sparsely populated islands of the West Indies. What started as small bands of hunters living off wild cattle and pigs on Hispaniola soon grew into something far more dangerous. The French hunters, calling themselves boucaniers, and their English counterparts, the buccaneers, set up their stronghold on the rocky island of Tortuga. From here, harassed by the Spaniards and tempted by the glint of gold, they began to turn their sights on Spanish ships and towns. These so-called Brethren of the Coast lived by a code of their own making, a rough-and-tumble set of rules that governed their lawless lives but left no room for mercy toward their victims. Among them was the notorious François l'Olonnais, known as the Exterminator, who tortured the citizens of Maracaibo with a ruthless efficiency that sent shivers down the spine of even the bravest souls. When confronted by prisoners who refused to speak, he cut the heart from one and demanded the other's talk as it bled out before their eyes. The age of the buccaneers reached its bloody zenith with men like Henry Morgan, a figure whose name still echoes through the annals of pirate lore. Morgan, a master of land and sea, launched audacious attacks that left entire cities trembling. In 1671, he stormed the city of Panama, unleashing his men to loot, torture, and burn with unbridled fury. Yet despite his brutal deeds, Morgan was knighted and died a respected Jamaican planter, his past atrocities forgiven in the light of his service to the crown. Morgan operated under letters of marque, legal commissions granted to shipowners allowing them to attack the commerce of enemy nations. But once at sea, the line between privateer and pirate blurred, and many men, like Captain Kidd, found themselves swinging from the gallows for crimes of piracy. Others, like the infamous Blackbeard, embraced piracy with no pretense of legality. Blackbeard, born Edward Teach, terrorized the Carolina coast, his image a nightmarish vision of plunder and murder. With his jet-black beard braided and tied with slow-burning fuses that spewed smoke, he struck fear into the hearts of those who crossed his path. Yet even he met his end, his severed head lashed to the bowsprit of a Royal Navy ship as a grim warning to others who might follow in his footsteps. The tales of other pirates, such as the like of John Avery, who sailed to the Red Sea and captured a treasure-laden ship of the great Mughal, only added fuel to the fire. It was said that Avery even tricked the Mughal's daughter out of her fortune, though he would die in poverty, his ill-gotten gains slipping through his fingers like sand. There was Bartholomew Roberts, a tea-drinking Welshman, who set a record by capturing over 400 vessels. His strategy was simple but terrifyingly effective. A swift, rakish craft would emerge from the dark, dusk, or dawn, firing a shot across the merchantman's bow. A well-placed broadside would tear through the victim's rigging, leaving it dead in the water. The pirates would then grapple their prey, slashing through the boarding nests and swarming over the quarterdeck like a plague. Steel clashed on steel, pistols flashed, and men grunted as they lunged and toppled onto blood-soaked decks. In minutes it was over, the outnumbered defenders either dead or trussed up, while rum-soaked louts charged about competing in atrocities. All the while the merchants, both prominent and shady, waited eagerly in places like New York, Boston, Charleston, and Bristol, ready to handle the pirates' ill-gotten goods. Even far-flung Madagascar became a notorious receiving station for the spoils of these sea rovers. Piracy, an age-old scourge of the seas, had reached an all-time high. Emboldened by the tales of David besting Goliath on the open sea, this new breed of pirate emerged, more audacious and more dangerous than ever before. They were outlaws with nothing to lose, driven by greed and a thirst for adventure, and the world would soon learn that they were a force to be reckoned with.